you know, something to think about, something to ponder.
I'm pondering.
Let's pretend that the world is a much simpler place.
Oh,
and let's pick on something like the front door of your house. What if there was only, when you went to choose the door for your home, there was only one door you can choose? One door.
One color, one size,
You went to Home
style.
Depot, they had one door. You go to Lowe's, they had one door.
Same
you
door.
go online to order a door, they got one door.
And it's all the same door.
Same door, same door.
Well,
Same
it would make
price.
it easy.
Easy.
Yeah, easy.
So I think this is a bit of a philosophical discussion about why things are the way they are, why people think the way they think. And there's some merit here. So sort of, I guess, bear with us at the moment. You see a lot of people online saying, well, why does this product exist? Why should this product exist? I could buy this for this price, or I could buy this that's slightly better in this way. So why should someone make this, right? And it's interesting because this type of discussion, although it obviously has merit and there's benefits, it conceptually it kind of makes manufacturers want to narrow in on one focus, one goal, one product. So you really don't have the diversity anymore. You're kind of sort of excluding diversity.
Well, you'd think basically what we're saying is that you would think that, or what we're thinking at least, is that if everyone did the same thing,
you would end up with the same product.
You would do the most popular thing.
Right.
And that would be all that you would do. There would be no other option, no choice, no thought process beyond it, because this is exactly what somebody needs.
This is what almost everyone
wants. You need
wants.
a door, and that's
someone
all
tells
you need.
you. Right.
And it has hinges, and it's got a knob, and it's a door.
And there's no
that's
option.
it. Right.
And obviously, this is a bit of an extreme example.
Yeah.
But in actual practice, we're seeing sort of things like this continuing to happen. Mainly the biggest things consumers will see is price being driven down, because it turns out when things are cheaper, people are more likely to want to buy them. Right. So everyone is sort of trying to find ways to make the thing cheaper and cheaper and cheaper so that it sells better, so that they can make money.
Since we're talking about construction, like 2x4s come to mind. Like, how do you differentiate a 2x4?
Yeah, right. To the consumer, what does it matter?
It's got dimensions. It's made of pine or whatever, and as long as it's straight.
But this one's
2x4.
cheaper, so
yeah, but one's cheaper.
that's what people go with.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it comes down to straightness. You know, you get like some of those are just like.
I like the
half
better
of them
2x myself. I think they're straighter. They tend to be easier to pick through the pile. You know, but they're another $1 a piece or something like that.
They can be considerably more expensive. Yeah. But beyond that, as a consumer, like if you're building your house and the builder says, "Hey, we have this 2x4, this 2x4," you're gonna be, well, what's the difference, right? There's no data or statistics, and to a lot of people, that's how they sort of shop for things. They don't really know. They choose not to really put a lot of effort into this decision because to them at the time, it's not important. And what tends to happen with that is you get a exclusion of diversity. You get everybody trying to make the same product.
Well, particularly if it isn't visually distinctive. Like, you think about it when you look at a 2x4, you can't look at it and tell that one's better than the other.
Right, it's very hard.
You could measure it, you go looking for straight but I'm saying just visually. Yeah. You take a picture of a 2x4, they all look the same.
Well, yeah, it's like widgets, you know?
Yeah, widgets. Or doors, even a door. If all doors are one color, then, and it's functioning as a solid door, no windows, no nothing. Mm-hmm. How do you differentiate one door from the other with a photo?
It gets hard.
It's very difficult to do. You can't, until you touch it, feel it, knock on it, try to punch a hole in it, kick it. How does it hold up against, a burglar or somebody trying to bust it? I mean, there's so many factors you could think about with a door. Or do you just buy a door? Put it in there and call it with a knob and call it a day.
It's just interesting to me how, to some extent, people say, well, they don't make things like they used to, but also at the same time, the focus on consumers tends to be driving price down and making more or less the most popular thing, because people will have this, to some extent, negative feedback loop on manufacturers, and they will pressure manufacturers to some extent with their wallet.
Retailers, the stores themselves.
Everybody, yeah.
Basically who they're buying it from.
The whole chain.
Yeah, they're going to point the finger at who they're buying it from, I think, and say, hey.
Consumers will buy the popular, the thing on the shelf, the common, the cheap. When you have two color options, one's a wild color, one's just like white or black or like a normal color, people almost always go for the typical everyday color. They won't go for the exotic options too much. So that sort of says to manufacturers, well, maybe we don't even need this exotic option. Just like in automobiles, the manual transmissions, they don't really sell anymore because, well, the automatics have continued to get it better and better. They're faster, they're more efficient than ever, they're more reliable than ever. in
Well,
some
and
cases.
it's probably cheaper for the manufacturer to carry one SKU.
Way
than-
easier, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is the consumers vote with their wallet. And they don't buy the manuals anymore. And so now manufacturers are saying, well, we're just not going to buy. It's not worth putting the effort in to make the manual anymore. And is that good? That's a genuine question, right?
Well,
is
the
that,
people
is
who are
that
in the
what consumers
manuals,
want?
no, I think it takes the fun out of it.
That's the
what they
thing,
were
though. That's the problem, though. The people that are in the manuals, myself included, they talk about how they want manuals, but then they don't actually. When it comes down to actually
Having a
buying
choice.
it,
Yep.
they don't buy it.
Over and over. And it's funny you say that because you see this a lot. You see people online talking about cars as a great example, right? They say, oh, I would never do this. I would never do that. And then a few years goes by. And what do? The thing they said they would never do. All the time they say, oh, this particular vehicle is the best thing in the world. Then why don't you have one?
Technically, that's a good thing because people should change. I mean, particularly as you get older and stuff, your needs change, which we talked about.
Well, there's no trouble with that.
You know, that goes for anything. At some point. You know, the fridge I liked 20 years ago ain't the same fridge I like today.
Well,
Right.
Same with cars. Same with anything, food, anything.
well,
you know?
that's perfect. Food.
You should be adjustable. You should be flexible.
Everybody loves to say how, oh, I don't eat McDonald's, right? Well, someone is because they're like the biggest food provider in the country, right?
Yeah,
So who's lying?
it's so easy too.
Yeah, well,
Go through the drive-through, hand them a credit card.
So if you're reading
Bag of
between the
food.
lines, I think the thing I was going for is more or less that it's curious to me how the apparent cognitive elasticity of some people seems to lag considerably behind.
Oh, it is a rigidity. It's rigid.
Right,
Yes.
behind their actions and their claims can be radically different, right? They'll say one thing and then perform something quite differently.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting to me is that they don't have the perception that this is happening. So it's curious how that's the case, right? So consumers are talking about one
why
thing.
would that be? Like if you are talking,
You see it a lot.
I guess what it would be is you're talking maybe because people are in two different positions when they're doing this talking.
You're kind of in a different place, I guess.
Yeah, you know, one is isolated from the other somehow. The reality is
you're
there
not
when you
thinking
got to whip out your
practically.
wallet.
When you're sitting there typing on the keyboard,
right? Versus
but when it comes down
you're
to
communicating and
actually,
isolated. Yeah, right.
When you're actually buying that car,
Yeah,
well, it needs to be
when
practical.
you're physically in the space doing it,
Yeah.
other factors must come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
They must, because otherwise, why would you make a different decision when you were talking about it? So I guess that's the difference too, right? At one side of it, you're talking about doing it, and then the other side of it is you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They are two different
They
things.
are two different things, yeah. And everything, if you think
Well,
about
yeah.
it, everything, not just purchasing decisions.
But people never really go back and close that loop and make that realization that, in fact, when I talk about this, I have a dramatically different thing than when I actually go to buy it, when I do the purchasing.
I would think once you purchase something, though, right? Wouldn't you
Imagine.
you now talk about what you purchased?
No.
Nope.
What people usually do is
You still want the stick shift?
they don't reevaluate their stance because now all they do is they justify the reasoning to get there more often than not.
All right.
And it's interesting because you create this massive gap between what you say you want and what you actually buy. And as a manufacturer, it's quite interesting because manufacturers, of course, try to offer what consumers are going to buy.
Well, an example of that would be like the Diana shop, right? The custom shop. We have like 50 different colors of Diana, right? Which is really cool. And they're mostly like one-offs. They're like unique. You buy one, it comes off the store, it's gone.
It's the only one.
Yeah, it's the only one in the world, right? Which is kind of neat, I think. At least I think it does. But it's funny though, we have all those different shades and colors that are currently there. And you still got people going, oh, make me a yellow one with pink dots or something like that.
There's
I'm
always
like,
more, right?
Yeah, and then someone comes in, which is cool. I mean, we're open to suggestion, but the point is, okay, but if we made that for you, would you buy it? Right? And invariably, probably not.
Probably not.
But it sounds like a cool idea when you talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, can you make it in solid silver, chrome? Yeah, we're thinking about it, but would you buy it?
Well, we'll find out.
It's cool to look at. Yeah, we're going to find. Well, that's what we're finding out.
That's sort of the
what we're
point
doing
behind
now,
the
right?
custom shop.
Would you buy it?
People always have said, well, you should do this, you should do that. So we basically said,
all right.
okay.
I know
we're doing it.
I know in electronics it's always been like that. That's why you tend to see silver and black. Those are the two choices.
That covers most bases.
And black tends to be prevalent. And because it's easy to do plastics in black too, right? You can do plastics and metals and they kind of match. But bottom line is that besides the manufacturing standpoint, once again, if you gave a customer, a consumer, the choice of color in electronics, They're probably not going to pick any of the colors. They're probably going to pick black or maybe silver. Depends. And I don't even know what the criteria is. I've never really looked into it. But I mean, with some people, they already, like if I had an audio rack that was silver, maybe you want to match up gear with it.
Yeah.
Maybe black gear looks good on silver. I think I've had both, so I don't know.
It's like Viva, their amps, and you can get it painted in any automotive color, whatever. But the thing is, if you think about it, what would you? Yeah, you'd get black, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't get a yellow amp.
Well, the
would
bright
you?
yellow comes to mind.
You would though.
That's
Would
what you
get it?
see. That's what you see in the photos
see it in the
online.
pictures, but would you
because
buy that?
Right, it catches you
Right.
from a marketing standpoint. But right, I don't think you would. I think you'd probably order gloss black, piano black. Would you order?
Without having seen it, though, would you ever buy it? Would you ever be the one to say, you know what, that's the color I
You
want?
probably wouldn't consider it.
And that's the issue. There's a lot of things in manufacturing that are physically very difficult to achieve or do. So if nobody suspects there's a market, you're not going to just do it. Like you look at the cars, the cost to make a prototype of a vehicle could be extravagant, hundreds of millions of dollars in cases. And especially if you're talking about engine development and things like this, it could be over $1 billion to design something really radical. And obviously they're not going to do that if there's no market for it. There's no value commercially. And that's an issue because now people are going to do what's safe. And what's safe is bland, beige, whatever, white cars,
I was just
Camrys
watching
and
it.
stuff.
It was on the History Channel or something. I was just watching a show, and they had Ford and Chevy, Henry Ford back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Model A's and T's, and I think was it Ford? One of them came out with a model that was a flop. They spent at the time it was I don't know what $750 million, which was like billions of dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know, was it a Fairmont? I forgot what the model was, but it was one of the models. 1 year they scrapped it. After a year, it didn't sell at all. And I mean, some guy there had a vision, and they wound up going through that vision. In fact, I think it was one of the Fords. It was one of the sons.
Right.
He had a vision, and they went
They
gung
did
ho on this. They did everything they thought, higher horsepower, blah blah blah. And a new body design, and it was either ahead of its time or it just didn't fit the market. And yeah, within a year they had to scrap the whole thing, and from there on, it stifled it. For years, it stifled their desire to do something like that again.
Right, of
because
course.
it was a burn. It was like a bad stab wound to the principles of the company because they're afraid now to do anything outside the norm.
You go
And,
bankrupt for that kind of stuff,
Yeah, it was a lot of money
right? I mean,
at the time.
how many times have
So
pretty much any big
history has
company
proven
been
that
there?
this isn't the way to go necessarily. This isn't the easy path to do your own
Right.
thing
Well, yeah.
and then hope that people buy it.
Apple's been there a time or two, right? They poured money into projects that maybe didn't really go
think
where they
everybody
expected
has.
or took way longer than expected and they barely made it. Tesla with the Model 3, they poured everything they had into it to get it done. And if it didn't succeed, they probably would have failed. And there's a bunch of stories like this.
Well, a lot of companies never make it past the first product
Right.
because the first product was the mistake.
That's the trouble.
Never made that's it.
If you
Done.
never made the money, you
never got
can't
off
go
the
You
anywhere.
ground.
can't afford to
Yeah.
redo everything.
Seemed like a good
again, right?
idea on paper. Nobody bought it.
Right.
And that's it. You're done.
But from my perspective, right, the interesting thing is the companies that don't take the risk more often than not. They take it safe. They do what people tell them. And there's a handful of companies out there that do things like this, of course. Most consumer companies, they just make the hits because that's where the money is. You don't make a huge amount of money, but you make a decent amount of money. And if you ship enough of them, you make a lot of money. And a company like Toyota comes to mind in the car space. They've been shipping what people want to buy for a long time. Very rarely do they do some pie in the sky exotic thing. And the question is that good? Is that bad? Should that be the way it is? Because you sort of end up with uniformity, right? You end up with boring in some senses. But in a lot of ways, consumers don't reward you most of the time when you do exotic. So there's a lot of risk to do exotic. And it's a curious dilemma between the two, right? How do you make a thing that's cool and interesting and unique? Maybe you think it's cool, but if it takes a lot of money to do it and you don't make anything,
You throw the word
do you do?
prototype out there. It's a prototype.
yeah, but you're not
And
going to
see
keep
how
doing
people
it.
how people take it. But even then, when
Yeah.
you get feedback from people, are they going to buy it? It always boils down to,
Do they buy it?
oh, that looks so cool, but
Well,
would you buy it?
The other problem with prototypes is it actually going to look like this?
Right.
Because the prototypes
Well,
are always
invariably
things
it
that are
never
like,
does.
we can't actually make this.
Yeah, right.
So.
Well, sometimes they
invariably-
do that.
Yeah.
They show something they can't make, looking for feedback.
Right.
And then
And everybody's
people
like,
say, that's sick.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they make it and it's totally different. So it's like, well, I didn't like that.
Well, they pull the
'cause-
pieces they can off it. Right?
Yeah.
Probably the pieces that people.
But they're
like.
extrapolating. What do people like about this? What
Right.
can we deliver?
Yeah.
And then they try to make something that's vaguely close to what the people liked, but it ends up not being that way because they couldn't make anything like that.
But to bring us back to the beginning, obviously there's more than one choice in doors. And, you know, I don't know, that's probably a topic for another video because now what you're saying is saying, all right, well, now we have a range of doors. We've gone from 1 to 1,000, and the range in prices this is also that 1,000-fold too. So now, why? Why would you have a $10,000 door when a $100 door will
Is a door.
will still close the opening in the wall? It's
Right.
still a door. Yeah, and so I think we should probably bring that.
We'll
to
talk
another-
about that in a future video.
Yeah, I think so. And in the meantime, though, we'd like your comments, like suggestions and
Yeah.
stuff on this one in general. You know, what does everybody out there feel in terms of having selection versus not? Like, would
Right.
you prefer to see 10 doors, not thousands?
Even if you only buy one, do you like knowing that this range exists?
Right. Yeah, and that goes for everything. In our case, it's headphones. Could be televisions. Could be roof shingles. Whatever.
Sure.
The point is like,
Anything.
you know, yeah. You know, what would you be happy with one at one price and call it a day, or do you prefer to have a near infinite selection? It'd be cool to see what people think. You know, and then what would you gauge that selection on too? Is it looks, performance, price, all the above? I mean, there's a lot to consider depending on what we're looking at.
Well, yeah.
If you're talking about a nail, well, I don't know. But a door is a little higher in the evolutionary scale than a nail.
And the nail, sure.
Yeah, well, there is a pretty big range of nails now, though. Too.
I brought that up purposely because, in screws
Yeah,
too.
screws
Hardware's
is a lot.
Hardware's a real bitch too.
Especially stainless versus like coated versus
Yeah.
bare steel.
You know, how easy they strip out when you hit them with the big.
Yeah, different
There's a
heads.
lot.
Yeah.
We could do several videos on
Yeah, right.
fasteners.
Yeah, so it is crazy.
But in that same kind of vein, there is one thing that they don't make like they used to, though, and that is 2x4s.
That's true.
They used to be 2x4.
I know from when I was a kid that we had real trees back then. I don't know what kind of shit they're growing now.
Well, see, that's the
We cut all
issue.
not
those.
the
We
same
cut all
wood.
those
They're all
trees
gone.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That wood was denser back then. It was
Considerably
I was
so,
a
yeah.
yellow. I think it was yellow pine. My grandfather says yellow pine's the best, and we'd make like those horses. What do you call them? Those horses.
Oh, yeah.
Seahorses,
Yeah,
sawhorses.
the horse
Sawhorse.
that you could put your shit on to work on. He'd make it out of the yellow pine. Those things were freaking heavy. Now you pick up a 2x nowadays, and it doesn't weigh shit.
What are they, Doug fir now or something?
It depends on your
I think
region.
it's, so-
Whatever grows the best in your region.
maybe someone could clue us into that. Why are trees different?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of videos
Yeah.
on
Is
that.
there?
It's not the trees. It's just that was old growth. That's a much older tree.
And we cut
And
them
it's-
all down.
Right. They're all gone now.
Oh, of course.
So now what we are cutting down is the stuff that we grew recently enough. So it's a fairly new growth.
Also, as the tree
It's
gets
just
older, it gets
gone,
more
gone.
solid.
I guess it gets denser. Yeah.
So
there you
we
go.
literally can't make it like.
So
we
it's
used to.
not
Well,
economically
you gotta
viable.
wait.
Well, that explains why the old homes are still standing, built in the 1850s.
Well,
Well,
not
not
really,
necessarily.
actually. There's a little bias
well, I mean,
there.
the wood's good. There's
could
no
be.
telling on the construction.
The construction was pretty bad.
But the wood's good. If the foundation was good, you're good.
Yeah, the materials were bad.
Yeah, so
But
take the wood out of them and build a new thing.
Yeah.
that's the discussion of our future video, in fact.
Yeah. Right. We'll
We'll wrap it
that's
up.
next. Yeah, it's next.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching. Remember to click click the like,
Yeah, like,
the
comment,
thumbs up.
subscribe, send it to all your
and
friends.
subscribe. Go find a subscribe thing and subscribe to us.
It's right next to the like.
Oh yeah, so you know.
Pretty easy to do, in fact.
Yeah, so you know what's coming. You got to know what's coming.
You do, yeah.
It helps to know what's coming.
Well, yeah.
Otherwise, you
Then
might
you can
miss.
be real cool.
Oh yeah, you might miss it if you
The
don't.
coolest.
Thanks everyone. Take care.